firearm deer season is all but here. That means it's time for a camp visit.
I'll hunt until I drop, so when I'm, like I said, 93 yet.
Stick around, that's all tonight, right here on Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Deer season, camp, hunting, and a variety of other things we do throughout the course. They're just that, things we do. It's the stories that make those things eternal. I sat down with 93-year-old Sonny Milkiewicz to hear some of his stories.
Yeah, this camp, we tore down a fish smokehouse down in Escanaba to get the lumber for this. And that's what this has, all the lumber from the old fish house. It was really smelling smoked fish for a couple of years there. The cedar and pine that came from here. We put the inside after second year, I think it was. And then we coated the outside. That was just all tar paper. And there was bats inside the tar paper, and oh geez, what a mess we had here. Oh, our family. This was a family camp. My wife, Joy, she hunted with us, and she'd make our meals, and we'd go out hunting, and it was so nice because when she did hunt with us, she'd make the meals, and we'd come in, and our supper was ready for us. And then after the kids were born, and they started getting a little older, they started coming up with us, and they, as they grew older, my son and granddaughters and that, they all started hunting. When they were old enough to hunt, we had them hunting. We enjoyed very much just coming up and sitting at the table here, having a little meal once in a while with some of our friends that would come in. Hunting is our main object here, and when we had to go over to the hardwoods, we did a lot of hunting over there, but you had to walk approximately 1 mile, maybe a little better than a mile, to where we hunted. And then you walked another half a mile to find a spot where you wanted to stay and sit. So we'd take and walk over there early in the morning, stay there until noon, come in, have lunch, and walk back all the way back out there again. And we sat on stumps and logs. We never had no with a little cushion that we had in there, probably hooked onto your belt. But we caught some nice bucks up there. There are a lot of bucks in them days, but and we always did pretty good at that camp. I always, like I said, I always ended up getting one. But we also got spikes. If the season wasn't very good and towards the end, we had to have venison. So we'd take a spike. But we did that for many years. They were does. We got does too, because I don't know if it was legal or not, but we got them anyhow. We had to have meat. We did a lot of driving. And this one time, Kenny was driving, and I was on the road, the main road, and watching the road for anything coming across. And all of a sudden, bang, bang, and I heard shoo, shoo, and I looked and hear that deer and Kenny were right in line with me, and them bullets were coming right. Oh, so they were whistling. I mean, really whistling. About 3 shots. Oh, I could have crapped my pants. Oh, wow. And we made a lot of blinds too, because after we started sitting on those stumps, it got pretty cold. So we wised up. We made ourselves a blind wherever we were, and then with that little wood heater. That's all we had then. We didn't have the little buddy or the big buddy in them days. Right now, when I get in my blind, I make sure I got a buddy heater. But I still go hunting. I'm 93 years old, and I still get out with the help of my son. If it wasn't for him, of course, I wouldn't get out too much. I have a little hard time walking, but I've been pretty lucky. Out of all the years that I've hunted, since I was 16 years old, there's only 5 years that I never got a buck. And I was in service for 4 years, but I got home 2 seasons for leave. So I made it back I was on a carrier for a while. I was in an Navy Air. But I managed to get up here as much as I could. Bob Bosk and we graduated from high school, so we're going to go to Alaska. So we went to, my mother took us down to Ocano, where the main train was. We caught a train there, and we got about 50, I think it was about 100 and some miles on the train. And then we got off and we started hitchhiking. We hitchhiked all the way to Seattle. It took us 8 days to get there. One of the stops was a guy that picked us up. We stayed in his vehicle for about I'd say maybe 500 miles, quite a ways anyhow, about 400. Anyhow, he took us into this place. It was late in that night, and it was dark, and so what did he do? He said, "Come on, we'll give you a bed," and that. So that was pretty nice of him. He gave us a bed to sleep in. It was his bed. But the only thing we found out, we happened to look when we did come in, driving in, it was an insane asylum. So we happened to think, what the heck, what if he wanted to throw us in? Nobody would know it. So that's what we were thinking about. I was thinking, we're going to, but the next morning he took us and gave us his breakfast and took us out to the highway and said goodbye. So I thought, boy, that was pretty nice, but boy, we scared the hell out of us. And then we also stayed at Yellowstone. We went there and we stayed we went swimming there. And then we got a cabin. Another thing. When we left Ocano, both of us had $13 on us, and that was it. And we were going to Alaska, $13. We got over to Seattle. When we got into Seattle, we each had 10 cents. What did we do? We got to call home. So I took that and I got home, called home, and told my ma, "Can you send us $10? Yeah, she said. I said that we need it now. So she sent it. I don't know how it was, but it came that same day. She sent us $25.
Must have been Western Union or something.
And that was nice, $25, and here we were kings then. We stayed in his uncle's hotel, which was down in down where all the bums and everything slept. That's where we slept. And so we can't go to Alaska. They wouldn't take us. They told us we're too young. You got to have tools. We didn't have no tools. We should have had tools and told them we were 21 instead of telling them we were only 18. 18 years old. We ended up getting a job in the juice or making
Canning factory.
making grape juice. But it cost us 10 cents on the to take a train or a streetcar from where we were staying down to where we were at the canning factory. And what happened? You'd get all full of grape, and then we had the stains, and here we are sticking in that room, and it only had a little sink in it, and that was it. And then they had the light hanging on the cord that it would swing back and forth. We could reach that, but it was just a dive. Anyhow, we paid when we stayed there. We paid $10 a week. That's the kind of building or place it was. So we're gonna go home. So what did we do? We threw a bunch of clothes that we had, because we sent the trunk ahead of us when we were coming into Seattle. So we have our guns and everything. And we left that there. We had to ship it back home. And we took all enough clothes in a backpack. Those lumberjack backpacks. We filled that with clothes. But we also filled it with a gallon of grape juice. We were going to have something to drink if we were going to hop a freight. So that's what we did. We hopped the freight train. And it was an open gondola. And it was carrying creosote ties. There were places that we stopped. When we stopped someplace up in the mountains, we'd take and run. They always had a little place right there where there was a little one shed or something in the apple orchard. We'd get a bunch of apples because we didn't have nothing else to eat. Everything was messed up inside that backpack because when they threw it in, we threw it into the car and it smashed. So we didn't have no other extra clothes. And we going through all these tunnels with it's freezing. He'd sit on top of me in the corner so I'd keep warm, and then I'd sit on him and keep him warm. And this is the truth. We were trying to push each other so our bodies are next to each other, you know. And we'd sometimes stop for a long time. It took us, we were on that thing for, 3 days. Daytime, we'd sit up on top of those things, and we were kings at that time. Kings sitting on top of the creosote ties. We finally got to Montana, and we had to get off, and boy, we looked terrible. We were both dirty and smelling, and our clothes were all a mess, and you imagine those creosote ties, and we were, oh jeez, oh my God. We were regular hobos. But we'd stay on the train at night. Sometimes they'd stop these trains, you know, and then they'd switch. Sometimes you'd sit there for a couple of hours waiting for the next train to come by. It'd be a hobo camp or something. And you could hear them talking at night there. We were wondering, oh, geez, what if they found us? We were hiding in that thing. And then the guy comes around looking for people that are on the train, but of course he would never think we were dumb enough to go into an open gondola. So he didn't look in there, but he walked around, got home in time to go deer hunting. Because that's why we left. We wanted to make sure we'd be there home for deer hunt season. And like I said before, I've only missed 5 years not getting a buck, but I got when I come home. I remember up at when I was at Kenny's, and we'd go take a car and go to come in or after a hunt. We took it over to another place where we'd drive, you know, and that was about a couple miles away, so that's why we drove. In my gun, I shot black powder. You should have seen them guys when they said, "Oh my God, who it stunk so bad." They say, they say, "That's you, that's your gun." I said, "What?" "Yeah, oh, sure enough, that gun smelt that bad.
You guys.
Yeah, you could shoot that. When you bought a license, you bought a license for shooting a buck and a bear. Yeah, the tags were different. They had tags that would go into a little ball. First, they came out with a one that just slide in, flat, and it slide into that flat like that. Well, all you had to do was shove the knife in here like that and pull back, and you can shoot again. So I could shoot all the bucks I wanted, Kenny showed us how to do it. But then they came out with a ball. I forget how he opened that one. Similar way though. I think we did shove in something there to get in that ball. But anyhow, Kenny always figured things out. He's pretty good at that. He could open up any lock he had. We were hunting in here in the 60s anyhow. And that's when they just took out the railroad. That's the only way we get in here is on the railroad. So all these roads here most all these roads are on old railroad trails. In the beginning here, these roads weren't no gravel, tarp straight like they got them tarred now. And the roads are really in good shape. You can drive pretty darn good on them. But when we came up, we just had a lot of the road was just a two-rut road in them days. This area right here where we're sitting, this is where they loaded up a lot of logs because they still had the old long pole that they used to use to lift them logs up onto the train. And this was also a turnaround. As you come in just about 140 over here, you go one way, you back up, then you go forward, you go into the next line, and you can turn around that way, back and forth, in other words. And on one track, and then you go on to another track, and then another track, and you turn around and come right back again. So it was a nice turnaround for the trains. And right out there, just on the hill, there was a old log house. Well, it wasn't logs, actually. It was old timber that they made for the loggers that were in here. Because the loggers had to have something to eat while they'd go in that. And then they built a big building right on next to the lake. And then they had about 14 to 16 different beds in there for the loggers to sleep. When we came in here when we first come in here, we had to have a Jeep to get in because we had snow, too much snow. So you couldn't get in with a regular vehicle. We had to get in here with the Jeep, but we had take a long time to get in during a lot of those deer seasons because of the snow. Capone was in here. He was over in the Bass Lake, and he had a cabin in there, log cabin, that was so beautiful. The fireplace is just as tall as a man. It had a great big fireplace in it. So we met them one time. They come up, there'd be about 5 of them that'd come up, and when they talked, it was just like in the movies. And then they'd have these great big cigars. And I remember going over there with Charlie Bonner from Escanaba. Everybody knew him. And then, anyhow, that was some relative of his. Yeah, they came up, but I don't know if they did much hunting, but they sure did drinking and smoking and watching that fire burning. I don't know. I never seen them in the woods. And I got my turkey and my buck this last year, so I was pretty lucky. But I call it luck. As far as hunting goes, I'll hunt until I drop. So, and I'm, like I said, 93 yet, and I'll sure hunt this year again.
That's all for tonight, and I hope to see you right back here next week for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.